The Supreme Court had a decision that was made today. Let's go into it and let's talk about it. Let's show what the Supreme Court actually had a decision on. So the Supreme Court, it says Supreme Court strikes down affirmative action in college admissions, and Biden strongly disagrees. Well, he's going to say that. So this was just a few hours ago. It says Supreme Court today on Thursday struck down affirmative action in college admissions, declaring race cannot be a factor in forcing institutions of higher education to look for new ways to achieve diverse student bodies. The court's conservative majority overturned admissions plans at Harvard and the University of North Carolina, the nation's oldest private and public colleges, respectively. Chief Justice John Roberts said that for too long, universities have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges bested, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. Our constitutional history does not tolerate that choice. Let me continue. Justice Clarence Thomas, Uncle Ruckus, the nation's second Black justice, who had long called for an end to affirmative action, wrote separately that the decision sees the university's admission policies for what they are: rudderless, race-based preferences designed to ensure a particular racial mix in their entering classes. Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote in dissent that the decision rolls back decades of precedent and momentous progress. Echoing her dissent, President Joe Biden said he strongly disagrees with the court's ruling. He urged colleges not to let the ruling be the last word. They should not abandon their commitment to ensure student bodies of diverse backgrounds and experience that reflect all of America. Biden, the segregationist, said from the White House, he said colleges should evaluate adversity overcome by candidates. Both Thomas and Sotomayor, the two justices who have acknowledged affirmative action, played a role in their admissions to college and law school, took the unusual step of reading a summary from their opinions aloud in the courtroom. In a separate dissent, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the court's first Black female justice, called the decision truly a tragedy for us all. Jackson, who sat out the Harvard case because she had been a member of an advisory governing board, wrote with "Let them eat cake" obliviousness today. The majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all by legal fiat. But deeming race irrelevant in law does not make it so in life. The vote was 6-3 in the North Carolina case and 6-2 in the Harvard case. Justice Elena Kagan was the other dissenter. The two former presidents offered starkly different takes on the high court ruling. Former President Donald Trump, the current GOP former president frontrunner, Orange Joe Biden, wrote on his social media network in the decision marked a great day for America. People with extraordinary ability and everything else necessary for success, including future greatness for our country, are finally being rewarded. Former President Barack Obama said in a statement that affirmative action allowed generations of students like Michelle and me to prove we belong. Now it's up to all of us to give young people the opportunities they deserve and help students everywhere benefit from new perspectives, as he was bombing brown students abroad. The Supreme Court had twice upheld race-conscious college admission programs in the last 20 years, including as recently as 2016, but that was before 3 appointees of former President Donald Trump joined the court. So, I'm not going to read the entire article, but I read most of it anyway. But, it's the AP, so I really don't care because it's not really, if it were independent media, then I would, read a little bit less and explain more. But yeah. But yes, so they basically said X-nay on the ace ray on ologist K admissions A, whatever. So that's basically what happened. And so the funny part, this was hilarious to me, right? Is that a lot of people who are saying this really don't realize who this is really going to be affecting. So here's my opinion officially on affirmative action. Because my people were oppressed for 400 years. We were subject to harsh and inhumane conditions based on race. So, for that particular reason, us being allowed, of course, based on us doing well in admissions tests and doing well scholastically, academically, we should have special preference to be allowed because we had special preference when it came to us working for free, when it came to us being allowed to work in inhumane conditions. That race base was okay when it came to us picking your cotton. That race base was okay when it came to us, cultivating your sugar and your tobacco. It was okay. It was fine. It was fine. It was fine. But now, when it comes to our education, no, we can't do it that way. Now, that's what I have to say. What more I also have to say is that even still, when it comes to them repealing it, they have no qualms about doing it, while knowing our history. And looking at how we've been treated, I'm not surprised. Are you? I'm not. But at the same time, the people who are against affirmative action, they haven't really been disadvantaged from it. You know the old phrase, to the privilege, equality feels like oppression. Let's be real. The majority is still white students coming to these schools. If that's the case, then it's like, what you complaining about? The majority is still white students going to these universities. And then on top of it, it's still also based on academic acumen. So if it's based on academic acumen, and the majority of students that are still getting admitted are white students, it's just more of people like me are getting in. Feels like y'all just don't like that more of me are getting in. Now, another point that I also wanted to bring out is that also this decision, in my eyes, is also a division tactic. Because the division tactic really is that, oh, we just need to keep black people and white people separate. We just need to keep, a division of races so that they'll argue with each other. Ultimately, a lot of these decisions that come out of the government are really pushed by corporations in order to keep us divided so that we don't actually look and go, man, why in the hell do we even have to have affirmative action if all colleges were based or were tuition free and just open to everyone as grades 13, 14, 15, and 16, we wouldn't have to worry about this in the first place. Maybe, just maybe, if college was made available without having tuition and it was available for everybody, we wouldn't have to do this. There's no affirmative action for high school. There's no affirmative action for middle school. There's no affirmative action for elementary school. Why? Because everybody's accepted. Maybe, just maybe, we could actually make college for all. But we can't do that, can we? Higher education for all, free at the point of service, tuition free. Why not? Why can't we do that? We did it before. Why can't we? That would take away the entire look. If you're against affirmative action, then fine. Make college tuition free for everybody. If you're for affirmative action, make college tuition free for everybody. And everybody gets in. And everybody can pass. And if you pass high school, you are eligible for college. Boom. That's it. That's all. But why don't we? Oh, because you want to gatekeep. You see, y'all weren't thinking about this angle. Because look, if you're against affirmative action, all right, make college tuition free. If you're for affirmative action, all right, make college tuition free. Everybody who graduates gets in. Everybody who graduates high school gets in. Everybody. I'm saying, because guess what? It's about the workers, right? Am I wrong? Why are we charging tuition? It was charging tuition for higher learning is a paywall for workers. You know, every single time you guys try to go to like the New York Times or the Washington Post and you guys get a paywall, you guys can't read the article. You're like, oh man, I can't read the article. They do the same thing with education. They gatekeep education based on your financial situation. Right? Now, a huge amount of black people are on the lower socioeconomic spectrum, hierarchy. So therefore, by default, we're already going to be locked out. And then on top of it, a lot of poor white people are, right? And scholarships are far few in between. So then we have to go into student debt. And guess what? I think they're going to be ruling on the student debt crisis tomorrow. Guess what? It's still gatekept. So whether you're for affirmative action, which I look at you with a side eye, or you're for affirmative action, it's still gatekeeping either way. It's still gatekeeping. So let's just give it all, make it free for all. Pay for it through taxation. But we can't do that. Because people will be like, there's socialism. No, it's not. is social welfare. It's no more socialist than having high schools for every kid, or middle schools for every kid, or elementary schools for every kid. It's no more. If you're cool with public education, why do you stop it at a certain level? If you're cool, look, if you consider yourself a conservative, and if you want smaller government, why you let your kids go to public school? I thought you were conservative. I thought you were smaller government. Why are you using them? Right? Oh, because you're a temporarily embarrassed millionaire. Okay. Okay. See what I mean? If if you are using public education, or if you have been taught by public education, you should not have to be gate kept for your education. Now, what's another point? When it comes to race-based affirmative action, that's actually not everybody that benefits from affirmative. All right. Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Teen Vogue. Teen Vogue, affirmative action benefits most white women most. That's right. You read it. You read it. You read it, baby. All right. This came out last year. Let's go. It says, what do you think of when you hear the term affirmative action? When I ask students this question, the replies I get most often include racial equality, racial justice, racial discrimination, racial preferences, or quotas. Rarely do people mention gender. So it comes as a surprise to many to discover that white women have benefited more from affirmative action programs and policies than any other demographic. It is not an accident that conversations about affirmative action tend to center on race as opposed to gender. Instead, it is a predictable outcome of a campaign by well-funded and organized opponents of race-based civil rights programs in response to legal challenges that result from the 1960s civil rights movement. As it became clear that these legal changes were imminent, wealthy white conservatives with famous families like Coors, DeVos, Scaife, and Hunt mobilized massive resources to reverse the gains of civil rights initiatives in general and affirmative action specifically. Part of their strategy included a national public media campaign designed to create white opposition to affirm action policies by associating the term affirmative action with quotas on or race preferences that they said favor people of color and discriminated against white people. But in fact, few realize that the term affirmative action originated as a benign phrase used by Presidents John F. Kennedy and Lyndon B. Johnson to indicate that the government needed to take purposeful action or act affirmatively to end discrimination based on the race and gender. Eventually, a multitude of policies and practices designed to remedy systemic racist and sexist discrimination came to be referred to under the umbrella of affirmative action. Affirmative action came to signify policies as diverse as plans to recruit or as advertise jobs in communities of color and programs designed to employ employers to identify and correct the underrepresentation of women in particular jobs. But right-wing opponents of affirmative action focus national attention on race-based rather than gender-based affirmative action. And they successfully cultivated widespread white opposition to the core ideas of affirmative action. So we shouldn't be surprised that white women who may not even realize how they have benefited from affirmative action policies are also some of the fiercest opponents of affirmative action. You guys realize that these corporate dictators don't care about y'all, right? These corporate dictators are the ones that actually are really the buddies, especially with these colleges and universities. They really don't care about y'all. So while they shoot at us, right? It really wasn't totally us. They wanted to kill two birds with one stone. They wanted to go against minorities and women. You see, these corporate dictators will do everything and anything to make it so that they will come after all of us. And if you're cishet and white and male, do not think that you're safe. Because once they take care of white women, you're next. Because then that's when more division starts. You see, this is why it is important for us to team up and get together, because we need to take them down. Because they want to rule over all of us and determine what we and how we live our lives. This is why it is important for class consciousness to take precedent. Now, as far as the system goes, I agree with affirmative action, right? But at the same time, affirmative action is a band-aid on this system. Affirmative action is reformism in a capitalist system. If we had tuition-free college for all, we wouldn't need affirmative action. It wouldn't even be necessary. That's the thing a lot of people aren't thinking about. Why don't we have tuition-free public college and university? I want you guys to bring up that argument whenever anybody talks about they're for or against affirmative action. I think that's the important conversation. Because guess what? If we were to have tuition at high school level, then we would need affirmative action for high school. But we don't. We don't. Because every student gets to go to high school. You get to go to middle school. You get to go to elementary school, no matter who you are. Now, if you want to talk about the funding and how they're, done through property tax, we can talk about that. Talk about how we should really have all schools with, the same, with the same numbers of students should all get the same amount. So, students who are in like the more, affluent areas should get the same funding as students who are in the more poor areas. All of us should get the same education. Now, if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that. That's a whole nother conversation. But when it comes to affirmative action, yeah. No, we should honestly have tuition-free public school for all. And so if you're a white cis woman, you should be bringing up tuition-free public college. You should. Because the thing is that if you really want true equality means education not being gatekept. If you're a Black person, and if you're for affirmative action, you should be bringing up tuition-free public college for all. Because we should not be gatekept because of the color of our skin. It should be available to all of us. So that's the thing that I wanted to say. And so, of course, there was progress with affirmative action, right? And that progress should not be overlooked. But this is why I also talk against the Democratic and Republican Party. Because those two parties want to gatekeep. They're not for education for all. Some of them will say it, you know, some of them will be like, oh, well, we think we should have education for all, but they don't really fight for it, right? They don't actually fight for it. No. And then, of course, you have the other side, the GOP. They don't care about education for all. They think it should be gate kept as well. But the funny part is, like I said, college for all would negate affirmative action. It would just, you know, you wouldn't even have to worry about legacy. You wouldn't have to worry about legacy admissions no more. I honestly think that private colleges and private schools should be made obsolete. Legacy admissions? What? No. Mm-mm. Private schools and private colleges? Like, nah. If you fund and you provide enough for public education, there was no need for private education. None. That means you don't have a two-tier system. Schools, in my opinion, should be funded the way I think healthcare should be. Nationalize it all. Yes, I am a socialist. Nationalize it all. So therefore, there's no tiers between people, because you deserve the highest form of education possible, just like anybody else. You deserve the highest form of healthcare, just like anybody else. We all come out of a womb. We all deserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. One person doesn't deserve more than the other. Just because somebody's grandpa decided to exploit people years ago and they passed that stolen wealth down doesn't mean that you deserve automatically more than anybody else. Absolutely not. No. The age of unfairness needs to be over, which means getting rid of this system. This is why I had Kwame Ture in the beginning of the stream, because this is why we need to organize. Everybody talking about, oh, well, affirmative action, we need to have it. Affirmative action, we don't need to have it. Let's just get rid of the entire need for affirmative action, and let's just give college for all to everybody. The people who want to keep college in are the people who want to gatekeep. People who want the college to have tuition are the ones who are like, no, we should just gatekeep. But why? What is the purpose of making them charge tuition? Right? And you can go, oh, well, we can't afford it. Yes, we can. We afforded it back then. We can afford it now. We can. What's the reason? Interesting. DC says affirmative action was put in place to take the steam away from the reparations movement. You know what? I think We should have both. But the thing is that I think we should have college for all, and then also, lineage based, African descendants of slaves should also get reparations. You know, let me put this link to that in the chat as well. Hobo Rudy says, you are aware, JB, that the Declaration of Independence was not actually codified into law. It is part of the sacred mythology, but not actually anything substantive. Of course. But we should make it. We should force it. Everyone should be entitled to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I think if we actually change this system, the Constitution we should build a new Constitution. And one of the first things in that Constitution should say, every human being born in this country and anyone who comes into our borders deserves life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Full stop. That's it. And that pursuit of happiness should not encroach upon the pursuit of happiness, life, and liberty upon anybody else. I think we should make it that way. You see, when they did that Declaration of Independence, they only had land-owning white men in mind. That's basically what it was, right? But I say, yeah, we're going to expand that to everybody. So I think that's what. See? We here, DC. We here. All right. So, but yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. And I don't think anybody is talking about it. Well, they probably talked about it in the. Let me see. They're probably talking about it in the news. I haven't checked yet because. Oh well, they're talking about it right now. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's take a look at this really quick. Oh my gosh. Let's take a look at this really quick because I mean, why not? Before we go to the chat.
Charles, your thoughts, though, just on the top line, which is affirmative action no longer constitutional, according to the Supreme Court justices.
Anna, we've been headed to this space for a very long time. And unfortunately, there is a tie-in between the public discourse right now around diversity and everything that we are discussing, the misunderstanding of how race is actually used and discussed, and then a very disingenuous conversation about race in America, all of which has contributed to us being where we are. I share Eddie's feelings about knowing this was coming, but also being emotional about it now that we are actually hearing those words. And to Julia's point, what she was just talking about, we have already seen in California, for example, what it does to a student body to remove race from a factor of admissions. It has not worked out well. We have seen fewer and fewer Black students in the UC systems because of the removal of race as a factor in terms of being able to identify qualified applicants who can be there.
Explain that, because I think
qualified applicants, that's a really interesting word. Because to me, that just, look, as, by the way, that dude has an epic beard and the very nice tasting clothing, by the way. But that's beside the point. But here's the thing. The only qualification I see for higher learning should be you graduating and passing the 12th grade. Honestly, that's the only thing I should see. But that's coming from a socialist perspective on education. That education is a right to all. Education, period, is a right to everybody. So therefore, colleges really should be operated like high school, meaning that once you get out of high school, you should be eligible to go to college, full stop, because you passed. And so if you want to go and study a specific major within a college or university, you should be able to do so without having to worry about the financial cost. Because you passed high school. Why in the hell are you now having to go over another barrier just to get into college? You passed high school. Why are you having to go over another barrier? Make that make sense to me. It's like, okay, you passed high school, but now you have to do even further just to get into college, but you passed. You passed. You passed. Make that make sense, people. Like, it's psychotic, right? Like, if I passed English 4, if I passed geometry, look, I passed English 4, geometry, I passed environmental science. I did basically the prerequisites to get out of high school, to graduate, to get. Hold on. I passed to get this, right? I got this, right? This should be the only ticket I need to get into college. And yet, I have to do all this other shit in order to get in. Why? Why? Because it's gate kept. Because they only want certain thinkers. Because they only want you at a certain socioeconomic status. And then it's like, okay, if you're black, then you can get in. That's the problem. This is why the system needs to change. Because then, if you're gatekeeping against college, then guess what? You're saying, oh, well, you have to be a certain type of thinker. Right? And look, and some people are probably going to disagree with me, but I'm like, why should we gatekeep education? Let's continue.
A lot of people think you're either qualified or you're not. Why does race even matter? I think that's what the justices are saying here, right?
Race does matter because in many respects, there are a number of myriad different considerations that come into play when you're talking about the experience of an applicant who is black, who comes from certain areas, who had certain advantages or was void of certain advantages, going into a college application process.
Let's get rid of the need for applications, period, then. Let's get rid of the need for applications. Because the thing is that if we're going to want equality for all, then just get rid of the need for applications, period. Like, race does matter. Yes, Black Zen, race does matter. But the thing is that at the same time, we wouldn't have to worry about it if college was made available for everybody. We wouldn't have to. But they don't want that either. Because once you get everybody available for higher learning, what happens? We start to talk to each other. We start to realize, these people who are the corporate dictators are actually making our lives worse. And so once we start to talk to each other, and then on top of that, we start to go, wow, you're Black, but you've been going through this system like this, and you've inherited generational poverty. I didn't know that. Well, yeah, of course you guys deserve reparations. Of course. We should change the system and give reparations. See, here's the thing. I believe we should change the system at its fundamental level and repair our relationship with Black people who are descendants of slaves and freedmen. I think we can do both. And we will do both. It may not happen in my lifetime, but it's going to happen. But this is the, let me hear this guy.
Versus someone who did not come from that background and did not have these advantages. And it is not, from what people have still, even from 1978 with Bakke, people still misunderstand affirmative action. It has nothing to do with quotas. It has nothing to do with numbers in the sense of hard, fast, and rigid measures. And I have to go back to Dahlia's a piece that Dahlia wrote earlier, where one of the fatal flaws of how we got here is a decision that came, I believe it was Fisher, where they said basically, in 25 years, they put a sell-by date, essentially. And those are Dahlia's words. I want to give her
28.
full credit, right, for writing that and basically saying, hey, well, perhaps we can revisit here. As soon as that decision came out, that date began to be marked on the calendar. And people said, well, we can get here at this point.
But why don't we just make it available so that all Black students can go in? If you make college tuition free, that means all Black students can get in, which means that you don't have to have affirmative action. That means every single Black boy, girl, cis and trans, non-binary, I don't care who you are, you can get in as long as you earn one of these. This should be your only criteria. And once you get that, you're off to college, and then you can study to do the type of jobs that you want to do. That's it. If you want to go into healthcare administration, if you want to get if you want to become an engineer, or if you just want to learn, auto mechanics, because I also include technical and vocational education in higher learning too. We also need to do that. We also need to include all that too. The problem is that it's been gate kept. Public education should be a right. Now, you should be able to opt out of higher education if you want to, because you're an adult now. So opting out of college, okay, if you want to opt out, okay. But I think automatic enrollment. Be like, okay, you finish high school, all right, college. I don't want to go to college. Okay, you can opt out. You're an adult. You're an adult human being. You can do that. And then on top of that, if you have college tuition free for all, imagine how many people who are in my socioeconomic status can get in and then grow and go to philosophy classes and meet people of different backgrounds. Imagine how many kids in the hood would be able to go because they weren't gate kept out of it. You don't think gatekeeping still doesn't happen in HBCUs? Just because we're black doesn't mean we're still not gatekept. Let's be real. Because even though you passed all the required classes in high school, you still can't truly make it into college. So I can choose to go to Bethune-Cookman, but I can't get in just based on this. I can't get in just based on this. I have to do other hoops just to get in, right? I can go to UCF, but I can't get in based on this or just this. I have to jump through other hoops in order to get in. And then I also have to go based on my wallet. Why? Why do we have to do that? Because education is gate kept. Let's stop gatekeeping education. Let's start making it available for everybody. Now, tell me why I'm wrong in the chat, because this is a Q&A. Tell me why I'm wrong. You know, oh, and by the way, I also have some, there were some people who made different tweets about this whole thing. And I just want to, you know, I'm gonna share their perspective too, because some people have different perspectives on this. Let me see. Okay, now let's let me make sure. All right, so I'm gonna start off with this tweet because everybody's weighing in. I don't know if anybody weighed in the way I did though, but we'll see. So this is from Michael Harriet. He says, before you began your think piece, the Supreme Court did not strike down affirmative action. Admission preference for legacies, donors, employee families, and special recommendations are still allowed. The court struck down affirmative action for everyone except white people. And my thing is like, we wouldn't have to worry about that if college was tuition free, right? All right, so let's go to the next tweet, because this one is going to be another one. Let me see. Boom, boom. All right. This one is from friend of the show, Lee Camp. Lee Camp said the Supreme Court just struck down affirmative action. What people do not seem to realize is that the DNA of our racist society is affirmative action for white people. We just don't call it that. So the small bit of affirmative action we've had for non-white people was a tiny step towards equality in a very unjust land. A tiny step has now been wiped away. One example, one study found that even without even being seen by an employer, applicants are 50% less likely to get the first interview for a job if they simply have a black sounding name. Those black sounding names could be like a Lakeisha, it could be Jaquavius or something like that, right? Even though Jaquavius is a brilliant person, has the, you know, academic acumen of an Albert Einstein, Jaquavius can't get in because his name is Jaquavius. He could be, you know, he could be Kwame Jackson. But Kwame Jackson can't get in. But Tyler Sokolitsky can. You know what I mean? So when it comes to employment, that's one thing in regards to affirmative action. But continuing on, so affirmative action was equivalent to throwing a rock at a tsunami of white privilege. Now, Supreme Court of the United States has taken that rock away because it unfairly impacts the tsunami. That was funny. All right. So that's the thing. So while I still, like I say, I agree with affirmative action, it is a band-aid on a gaping wound. What else? Why do I have a feeling a bunch of people who are liberals are going to hate what I said? It's okay. It's all right. Now, this is from friend to the show, Colin from Indie News Network. Go ahead and subscribe to them. They do great work, by the way. Colin says, okay, let's bring this up. If affirmative action is considered unconstitutional, then should legacy admissions and people who make donations to school to ensure their child's acceptance? We are not ready to have that conversation, though. This is why I said college for everybody. See what I mean? Because that would take away the legacy admissions, because you would need a legacy admission to get into public school. You don't. All right. Here's another point. Uh-oh. Oh, well, looks like they deleted their tweet. All right. There's another one. Let's go to this one. George Johnson says Asian students have been convinced by white folks that black students have been taking their spots in college. Now more white legacy and affluent students will get in and take those spots Asian students thought that we were taking. Here's the thing, though. Like I said, if we had tuition-free college for all, then nobody would be thinking that they're taking each other's spots. This wouldn't even be an issue. And then another member of the Indie News Network, Robert Durden. Let's see what he has to say. Robert says, poor people give zero fucks about affirmative action at Ivy League schools, which is true. Imagine being so elitist that you think this is pressing or pertinent right now as our country collapses. Like I said, this is one of the reasons why, number one, we should have nationalized public education, and all higher education should be tuition free. So then we could give zero fucks about schools, higher education, but we wouldn't need affirmative action, and Ivy League wouldn't even be in existence. I know people are going to pull their hair out here and me say that. I don't believe we should have Ivy League schools. I think they all should be nationalized, but yeah. Now, this is now happening, and I want you guys to see this because this is crazy.